negotiating with America, especially this administration, is neither noble nor smart nor rational. Arakchi had an interview after that with Fox News in which he again refused to even talk about America's attack on Iran and he only focused on Israel. Same for Pezeshkian, who had an interview with Tucker Carlson, who had no mention, not a single word, of the fact that United States violated Iran's sovereignty.
Israel and the United States have been working relentlessly and ruthlessly to de-link Palestine and Lebanon from the war on Iran. They are trying to force the Iranian leadership to abandon the Lebanese people and the Palestinian people.
Use your leverages. These leverages are becoming useless in 3 months' time or 6 months' time. Do not give up on Lebanon. So by showing the massive wedge between Israel and America, by showing a massive fight between Trump and Netanyahu, they tell Iranians, make more concessions because Netanyahu wants to sabotage the deal. Mate, what are you talking about? What are you smoking? Netanyahu and Trump started this war together. People around Pezeshkian do not understand imperialism, and generally, they're completely out of it.
Good day, everyone. We are here today with another power panel. We are here with Alizadeh, who has been on our show already a few times of Jedal TV. Ali knows a lot about Iran and has some recent updates on his whole ex debacle. And we are here, of course, with brother Dimitri, veteran of the show. So what I'm going to do is I am going to hand the first question to you, Dimitri, as this is your first time with Ali. So go ahead.
My question may surprise you, Ali, and my question is this. In 2024, the Iranian president, Ebrahim Raisi, was killed in what we were told was an accidental helicopter crash. And he was reputed by the West to be a hardliner. These were statements that were made about him constantly. And I had, from the very beginning, as many others did, doubts about whether, in fact, he had been killed in an accident. And it's not just, of course, me sitting from my perch in the West who had these doubts. For example, Mohammed Sadr, a member of Iran's Expediency Discernment Council in August of last year, alleged, although he admitted that he didn't have conclusive proof of this, that Israel or the United States or both had a hand in President Raisi's murder. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are about this.
Thank you very much, Karim, for inviting me, and nice to meet you, Dimitri. It's a pleasure to be on the same panel with you, especially we never get chance to talk. You went to Iran and you had a first-hand account of what happened during the war, and so you produced very high-quality programs, and thanks a lot for reporting that country when it needed eyewitnesses like you most. Regarding the first question, which I think is a very apt question, is a very good reminder of the recent history because we tend to forget things. The enormous amount of noise and news produced every day makes us forget the important things. All these things happened from the moment that Raisi was killed in that supposedly accidental crash, because before that, what happened 7th of October 2003, it was accumulating a strong impact on Israel's security architecture, and then Lebanon entered into war and Lebanon gave a very heavy beating to Israel. So we tend to forget. We think that Israel has been the victorious, triumphant element in this calculus from day one. Whereas when we go back to that moment that Raisi's helicopter crashed, until that moment, Israel had massive problem in Gaza. Israel had been almost defeated by Hezbollah and could not push Hezbollah back. All of North Israel was evacuated. And then Iran launched Va'de Sadiq 1, which is like True Promise 1, which of course it was not, it didn't kill anyone or didn't create any significant damage to Israel, but it showed Israel what Iran can do. And suddenly, Raisi's helicopter crashes. And from that moment onward, everything changes. Look at that. I have nothing against Pezeshkian. I'm coming from reformist background. All my family vote for reformists. And I'm not, even culturally, I still kind of have more sympathy with reformists than others. But since my eyes have been I've woken up in a Kantian way from my non-realist slumbers, and I've realized how the international relations work, and the international relation definitely does not work in line with Javad Zarif's understanding or Hassan Rouhani or Pezeshkian. I think reformists can be dangerous for Iran, axis of resistance, and the whole region. So, with nothing against Mr. Pezeshkian, who I interviewed back in 2021, and even I was happy of his entrance into the election because he was the most kind of justice-seeking and also the most realist element within the broader reformist camp at the beginning. But then slowly he was almost co-opted into Javad Zarif's and the liberals camp. So by the end of election, he talked exactly like Rouhani. He talked about creating detente with the United States, de-escalating the situation, the fact that Lebanon and Palestine are not our problems. And so we heard that. And look at what happened. Israel exactly tested the red lines of Iran immediately after Pezeshkian took the oath in parliament. You remember the picture that Pezeshkian was embraced by Ismail Haniyeh, the political head of Hamas, and 12 hours after that picture, Haniyeh was assassinated in Tehran. So normally, IRGC and Supreme Leader would have asked Iran to immediately take revenge and to retaliate for that, to make sure that Iran's deterrence has not been affected. And Pezeshkian said no. Pezeshkian went personally and asked Supreme Leader on his day one of his being elected and appointed as the president that give us a chance. Let us go and negotiate with Biden administration. Of course, he was deceived by Biden administration, who on the record told him and Javad Zarif that please do not retaliate and give the ceasefire that we are trying to create in Gaza a chance. They bought that. About 3 weeks later, on 13th of August, if I'm not mistaken, Iranian calendar, or maybe 23rd of August, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah wrote a letter to Iran asking them to join up in what was called Operation Arba'in against Israel, because he realized that Israelis are slowly turning the table, and Iran said, no, thank you. We are on our way to New York. Zarif and Pezeshkian went, they were preparing for the trip to UN General Summit, and so they did not join Hezbollah, and they left Hezbollah alone. And you know what happened after that, better than me. First, the pager attack happened, and a week after that, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, the most important element in Axis of Resistance after Ayatollah Khamenei got assassinated, which was a big blow to Axis of Resistance. Again, in this stage, IRGC immediately retaliated in True Promise 2, which was not strong enough, and Israel came back and had a very big hit, destroyed part of Iran's air defenses, destroyed part of Iran's solid fuel missile production, and at that point, the country was on a junction. Ayatollah Khamenei had said, if your retreat is not tactical, it will bring really kind of big kind of divine punishment. So he always, even though he didn't want to openly and directly intervene in the affairs of Supreme National Security Council, but he said that he believes Iran has to retaliate. And his famous saying was, Iran should rectify the enemy's wrong analysis of Iran, in bracket weakness. And then Iran's National Security Council decided not to retaliate. I'm talking about around 27th of October 2024. Iran didn't retaliate. Why? Because they were hoping, they thought if we retaliate in the interim time before presidential election in America, it will affect the election and it will reduce our chance to make a detente and de-escalation with the coming presidential office in White House. They didn't do that. And who was behind the wheel? Again, Pezeshkian personally, as the head of Supreme National Security Council, said, let us not do that. And what happened? They waited all the way for Trump to come. Of course, they were hoping for Kamala Harris to win, but then when Trump won, for them didn't make much difference. They still offered the hand of friendship to Mr. Trump. About a few months later, at that point, I met Trita Parsi in London. He was giving a speech, and he was one of the, I think, main people who was proposing this whole plan, which we see today in the Memorandum of Understanding of how to bring American companies into Iran, of how to entangle the security promises between Iran and America with the economic promises, and especially creating incentive for American companies to somehow bolster any ensuing deal, etc., etc. And then Ayatollah Khamenei again came to the scene and said, negotiating with America, especially this administration, is neither noble, nor smart, nor rational. So he used the word nobility, or what you can say, dignified. He said it's not dignified. And that was very strong wording that he used in, I think should be like 9th of February 2025. And a week or 2 weeks later, we had Mr. Arakchi sitting in Oman negotiating with Americans. So you can see how the situation in Iran is very pluralistic, and Ayatollah Khamenei did not have the last words. Even though he was a supreme leader, etc. And Pezeshkian pushed them. And you know what happened all the way to 12 days war, in which half of the top brass commanders in Iran were assassinated in blitzkrieg by Israel, completely supported by United States. And then United States joined in what it was called the Midnight Hammer. More interestingly, Arakchi had an interview after that with Fox News, in which he again refused to even talk about America's attack on Iran, and he only focused on Israel. Same for Pezeshkian, who had an interview with Tucker Carlson, who had no mention, not a single word, of the fact that United States violated Iran's sovereignty, attacked Iran's nuclear facilities. And when he was asked why later inside the country, he said, we are hoping to have a conversation with the United States. Again, after all the attack, after all the assassination, after all the humiliation and destruction of Iran's nuclear, Mr. Arakchi and Pezeshkian went to United Nations, went to New York, hoping to have another meeting with Witkoff. And Witkoff withstood them, did not appear to the meeting that he was supposed to be there, because he told the Iranians, we are not meeting and negotiating with you. We have a list of demands. You either fulfill it or we have no negotiation. So they didn't come. And you know what happened? They activated the trigger mechanism in JCPOA, in which Iranians did so much and were ready to give so much concessions for that mechanism not to be activated. And they did, which meant that after 10 years of Iran fulfilling all its obligations under JCPOA, nonetheless, United States, who was not part of JCPOA, but 3 European countries, brought back Iran to all the resolutions before JCPOA, all the United Nations Security Council resolution 2031, etc. Yeah, and so all the sanctions came back according to them. Of course, Russia and China always denied, and they said they do not believe the legal ground for that. And so, in a sense, we had 2 parallel systems with that. So, in a sense, from that moment of Raisi's assassination, in my opinion, things changed. And I don't think, I mean, that helicopter crash was never given good explanation by Iranians on why it happened. Of course, I understand from a state point of view in Iran why they never put the blame directly on Israel, because what could they have done? Could they have retaliated? Could they have assassinated Netanyahu? Could they have assassinated Israeli counterpart? Could they? No, Iran does not have that kind of capacity. So they swallowed down and they waited at the back. Well, why they went from Raisi to Pezeshkian is a slightly more complicated. And to my opinion, is because between 3rd of January 2020, when Qasem Soleimani was assassinated by Trump in Baghdad, and the day that Raisi was assassinated, something else happened as well. And that was woman life freedom. In autumn 2022, a massive cultural uprising happened, which you can call it a cultural riot. And to my opinion, the very beginning, the initial phase, the first few days, it was organic, something like Black Lives Matter here or in the United States. But what happened after that, and I worked on that, I produced about 100 programs on that, it was definitely, with all the documents which was published later, it was a hybrid warfare organized from Tel Aviv with assistance of Washington. Less Washington, more Tel Aviv. And they managed to really get a grip inside Iranian society, and they infiltrated a lot of Iranian administration, organizations, institutions. And so it was a proper hybrid warfare par excellence. So in a sense, Iranians had problem at home. Iranians had lost their somehow governance over the population. So in a sense, someone like Ayatollah Khamenei, in his pros and cons, in his calculations, so we passed the power from hardliners, or what we call principalists, to reformists, in order to mend some of that internal fissures and internal cracks which has opened by woman life freedom. Because as you know, despite the fact that Pezeshkian participated in the election, despite the fact that reformists demonized the principalists, and they said if they come, they're going to be another ISIS, another Taliban, they will like suppress women, etc. They use all those tactics. Nonetheless, the participation rate in the election, first round of presidential elections, was 41%, and second round was 49%. Still, 50% of the population somehow stood outside of the election. So in a sense, the balancing between domestic affairs, which was exacerbated by sanctions plus Israel's hybrid warfare from one side, and the demands and the necessities of the regional politics. That's pushed the state and pushed someone like Ayatollah Khamenei to opt for Pezeshkian, which created another set of problems.
Karim, may I, because you know my time is limited, I really want to ask Ali a follow-up question, if you don't mind. Is that okay? Okay. So, Ali, I have on my program, first of all, I want to say that I don't believe that Iran and the people of Iran have more of an obligation than the rest of us, and particularly those of us living in the West, to protect the people of Lebanon and Palestine. In fact, I believe that the highest obligation to protect the people of Palestine lies on people like me, who are citizens of Western countries, because ultimately it is our countries that are perpetrating these crimes and enabling these crimes. The Iranian people and the Lebanese people have already done far more than their share, and it is absurd for anybody like me living in the West to criticize them for not doing more. I want to be very clear about that before I ask you my question. I've been invited numerous times in interviews to criticize Iran for not doing more to protect Palestinians. I absolutely refuse to do that. I think it's offensive, especially coming from people in the West, that they would criticize Iran for this. But at the same time, I think we need to be realistic about what is going on here. Now, I think all of us understand that Israel and the United States have been working relentlessly and ruthlessly to de-link Palestine and Lebanon from the war on Iran. They are trying to force the Iranian leadership to abandon the Lebanese people and the Palestinian people. Rhetorically, the Iranian government says that's not going to work. They've been very clear, and you look at the MOU, they actually say all fronts must be peaceful. They specifically mention Lebanon. They did on one occasion when Israel, I think about 2 weeks ago, struck southern Beirut, Dahya. They did actually attack Israel directly, which was unprecedented. But when I look at what is going on today, I must tell you, Ali, that I'm getting the feeling that, in fact, Israel and the United States, for the time being, have succeeded to a large degree in delinking Lebanon and Palestine from the war in Iran. And why do I say that? I say that because ever since they signed this piece of toilet paper, I'm sorry to be crude, but this MOU, I don't believe any of it. I think they're dangling these huge, juicy carrots in front of Iran to try to get Iran to make concessions. Ever since they signed that thing on Trump's birthday, what has Israel done? Israel has continued to slaughter Palestinians. Israel has continued to slaughter Lebanese people. Israel categorically refuses to withdraw its troops from Lebanon and to respect the territorial integrity of Lebanon, as the MOU requires Israel to do. The Iranian government threatened, or at least the military threatened, to strike Israel the last time that it bombed Dahya. But in fact, it did not do that. And we were told that it did not do that because Trump made some concessions at the 11th hour, including a commitment, as I recall, to force Israel to withdraw its troops from Lebanon, which it has not done. And so when I look at what is actually happening on the ground, and by the way, I just saw a report within the last few hours that Israel has bombed Lebanon again. And a day or two ago, it killed a couple of civilians. It machine gunned them to death. They were just standing beside a bulldozer in South Lebanon. The Strait of Hormuz seems to remain open, although it's restricted. Iran has not attacked Israel, as it would be perfectly entitled to do. It has not pulled out of the negotiations, even though the United States is violating them 6 ways from Sunday, the MOU. And so I'm getting the feeling increasingly that, in fact, the United States and Israel, for the time being, the situation could change, have succeeded in delinking Lebanon and Palestine from the negotiations with Iran. What is your view about this?
I mean, first of all, I think people who support axis of resistance, people who are supporting the region's fight against colonialism and Zionist occupation and the presence of US imperialist forces have the right to question. And this is like a kind of fraternal question. So in a sense, it's not about you not having the right because you're not Iranian. And that's number one. Number two, I don't think Iran is only helping Palestinians. Iran is helping Iran. Anyone who is helping Palestine is helping themselves. And this is not in a philosophical sense that our kind of we are not free unless all of us free. No, from a very realist point of view, Israel has a project to dominate the region. Israel has a project not to allow any strong government, any strongest nation state to take place here, and will destroy Iran the way that destroyed Egypt, destroyed Jordan, destroyed Syria, destroyed Lebanon. And so people in Turkey, if they think a bit more clearly, they should join up the fight against Israel and containing it, because Turkey is a great country with a great history and a big population and big size, and so Israelis will definitely go for them. So in a sense, what Iran is doing for Lebanon and Palestine is for its own security, because the security of every sovereign nation state in this region is completely entangled, and because none of them is strong enough against U.S. Military army or like Israel's nuclear, they should join up. That's the philosophy of axis of resistance, one for all and all for one, because we cannot fight the enemy on our own. That's number one. Number two is, let me just kind of give a slightly more sympathetic.
Sorry for interrupting you for a moment. I hear a lot of bumping. So is it possible? Is it maybe possible that your arms bumping into the
100%.
microphone or the table or something?
Yep. Is it better now? Just thanks a lot for telling me. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. I think so. Let's see.
So let me just give a kind of answer more sympathetic to Iranian side. Iranians, I mean, there are different camps. One camp, exactly, they are the ones who say Lebanon and Palestine have nothing to do with us. Their followers started chanting from 2009 on the streets of Tehran that neither Gaza nor Lebanon, my life is only for Iran. Na Gaza, na Lebanon, janam fadai Iran. So definitely part of the reformist liberal camp want that. But does IRGC also want to decouple Iran from Lebanon? I don't think so. I think their thinking is that we focus our forces on a Strait of Hormuz. And with the Strait of Hormuz, we forced Trump administration to contain Israel and to bridle Israel. That's what they're thinking. And I think that's not enough. I definitely think it's not enough. And most of people on the streets think it's not enough. You know, every night you've been to Tehran, you've been to Iran, every night people are still gathering on the streets. And that's the very base of revolution at the moment, which has been activated by assassination of Ayatollah Khamenei. And most of signages in the last 4 weeks is why we are silent about Lebanon, why we are not doing more about Lebanon. And then the commanders of our Quds force come and say, oh, we are giving FPV to Lebanon, we are helping them, we are arming them. And people say that's not enough. That's not enough. And making red line about Dahia was not enough. We want red line about south of Lebanon. All the totality of Lebanon. So in a sense, that debate is very open inside Iran. And I personally think Iran and Ghalibaf, a negotiating team, made a big strategic mistake. Remember that the day that they were going to Islamabad, Israel created that Black Wednesday, killed about 390 people in Lebanon. And that day, Iranians threatened not to go to Islamabad, which was a right move. But then they continued the trip. They went to Islamabad. Instead of going to Islamabad, they should have launched missiles after missile to Israel to establish the red line. Because at that point, Trump needed Iran more desperately than Iran needing Trump. So Iran's hesitation in bringing south of Lebanon into calculation has allowed Israel to solidify this new kind of balance of power. And I think that's dangerous. Of course, Hezbollah has the power to push the invaders out, but in 2 years, in 3 years, in a very massive cost, because we know Israel, whatever Israel gain in terms of land, they're not going to give it back until they are forced out of it. And I don't think Hezbollah has that force immediately. So I think I'm a bit kind of confused myself. I understand yesterday IRGC showed a very right message by closing the Strait of Hormuz on the Omanis corridor, and was a very clear message that there is no concession, there is no compromise on the Strait of Hormuz. But I think they should have behaved equally strongly towards Lebanon and south of Lebanon. Why they didn't do that, I think, is because now the negotiation has started, and the negotiation has entangled Iran's economy with US promises. We've had this before around JCPOA, and that's called conditioning Iran's economy to negotiation. It's a very kind of for oil selling country. You can see, I mean, how now economy is getting dependent on JD Vance's and Trump's speeches. With one speech, the price of dollar in Tehran goes down, with the other one comes up. Inflation goes down, inflation comes up. And I think that's the big mistake that negotiation team have done. And I think the next 50 days of the interim time of the ceasefire can be very dangerous, because every day lures Iran and takes Iran more and more into being conditioned with the negotiation. And that's dangerous, because in that 39 days of war, we saw that Iran has enough internal power economically and socially. Iran is an autarkic country. Iran managed its economy in that 39 days without a single shelf in a supermarket being empty. So, but now they abandoned that kind of a state of emergency, and they've gone back to open market with the factional fighting, the business as usual. And I think all the problems have come back again. And so the liberals, the oligarchic section, they are forcing the negotiation team and the IRGC to accept Trump's conditions and to make more concessions, in the fear that, and that's important, in the fear that Israelis don't sabotage the deal. And I think that's a myth. That's the myth. So by showing the massive wedge between Israel and America, by showing a massive fight between Trump and Netanyahu, they tell Iranians, make more concessions because Netanyahu wants to sabotage the deal. Mate, what are you talking about? What are you smoking? Netanyahu and Trump started this war together. And it's not about Trump personality. It's about United States as a empire, its deep state, had strategic goals in the region, and it's about denuclearizing Iran, weakening Iran, delinking Iran from Hezbollah, delinking Iran later from Ansarullah, and isolating Iran. And that's the goal of United States and Israel. And so if you look at it from that lens, they are not fully defeated. And this war, as you know better than me, this war is not finished yet. And I think that's why from one side, the negotiation team in Iran can be a bit short-sighted. However, if you talk to them, they say, we are not short-sighted. We know this war can get resumed any moment. We are buying time. We are preparing ourselves. We are using every second of it to rearm ourselves and get some money, because Iran's economy is not in good shape, etc., etc. But I think the losses of this interim time is more than its gains, especially that Iranian society is losing its momentum.
Yeah. Thank you so much for clarifying that this whole Trump Netanyahu hate each other nonsense is a kabuki theater. It's a total kabuki theater. So I have no doubt that they are on the same page. They may disagree on the margins, but fundamentally their goal
And
remains.
they might have differences. I don't think it's fully kabuki or not, but they might have differences. But these differences are not enough from people of south of Lebanon. They are still being bombed. So in a sense, depends
Yeah,
where you are from. If you are sitting in Washington, these differences look massive. But if you are in Lebanon or Iran, I don't think these differences matter much.
I completely agree. There are differences, but I don't think they're nearly as great as they are made out to be. I think fundamentally they are committed to the destruction of Iran, and I do believe, as I said, and I'll turn it over to you, Karim. I don't think this whole question of the delinking of Lebanon and Palestine from Iran is settled. It could go either way at this stage. Right now, I think that on the question of the delinking, the Israelis and the Americans have the upper hand because the Israeli troops are still there. They're still killing people. They're even talking about expanding their zone of control. But at any moment, this could change. It all depends on the internal uh, conflicts and debates within Iran, how all of this turns out. So I'm sorry to have taken up the conversation, Karim. Thanks for your patience.
No problem at all, Dimitri. No problem at all. No, I just had a question. I saw a show of Dimitri with John Helmer, and John Helmer was very critical, for example, of Putin, and he said Putin doesn't understand imperialism, where Putin also wants to often negotiate and see rapprochement with the United States, blaming only Europe, not the United States. Very strange. And then I was thinking, to what extent do you think that the people around Pezeshkian actually understand imperialism? That is number one. And number two, how much support right now under the population does Pezeshkian have, and also the negotiations themselves?
Is it to me or is it to Dimitri?
To you, Ali, to you.
Okay. I mean, part of people around Pezeshkian do not understand imperialism, and generally they're completely out of it because they are the people who were coming from radical background in 1980s. They are those who took hostages in 1980 in American embassy, and then after collapse of Soviet Union and U.S. becoming unilateral empire, they went to Europe, mainly to England, where I am. They studied and they studied. Well, they became third ways. They became kind of liberals. Some of them became no liberal, and they became revisionists. So from that moment onward, they felt they are representing reality, and Ayatollah Khamenei is a delusional old dictator who's stuck in the past. So in a sense, they've been fighting for democracy inside the country, democracy American style, and also they've been fighting to create this de-escalation. And famously, Ayatollah Rafsanjani, who was a pillar of revolution, he said the world of tomorrow is a world of dialogue, not missiles. So this is a man who basically he was the commander chief of Iran during the war with Iraq, and he became such a revisionist, and he always used Japan and Germany post Second World War as good examples of development. I mean, so you can see how alienated they were from realist worldview and the necessities of Iran's national security. That's why Khamenei was very alone. Khamenei was demonized, caricatured for 2 or 3 decades, and that's why he had to find new allies for himself, and that's why he constantly went into the kind of more marginal forces to kind of bring himself some alliances, because all of Iran's technocracy, big part of Iran's clergies, people talk about mullahs, but all these mullahs were liberals looking supporting detente with the United States. Especially some of them had economic interest in the West, etc. So people around Pezeshkian, part of them are that. Another faction, they say we understand imperialism, but actually we do not want to be destroyed in the interim time of the transition to the multipolar world, because in the next 5 years we don't want to be the front line of the fight against the United States. We've been on the front line for so long. So we want to go through this very stormy weather in a safe way. The third faction around Pezeshkian are more dangerous, saying that because the world is moving towards multipolar order, we can actually have something more precious for United States. We tell United States, before we get co-opted in Chinese order, buy us for yourself. With us, the whole West Asia stays with United States. So in a sense, they try to bargain with United States, saying that we can come back to the American order against Chinese order if you give us enough concessions. And United States has shown that has no interest in doing so. United States will not bargain with mid-sized or small countries, will force them. Even with Russia, back in 1990s, United States had all the chance to bring Russia and co-opt it into Western order and Western system, and didn't. Instead, it punished them during Yeltsin time, and after that, even early time in Putin, until Putin learned the lesson. So this is like people around Pezeshkian. How much support he has? I think he has still not Pezeshkian, but the other faction doesn't have enough support to be able to create mandate on its own. So that's the problem. Iran just came out of a semi quasi civil war situation back in January, if you remember. Yeah. So, in a sense, they need to create consensus among the elites. That's what they think. I think personally, the war gave an opportunity to create consensus with the base underneath at the bottom rather than looking on the elite. But every day we are going away, getting further away from the ceasefire day and from the war. We are going back to the normal mechanics of the forces in Iran. So the elites, the oligarchy, the more powerful institution, they are the one deciding, and the base is becoming less powerful, and people have to deal with economic situation. Also, do not forget, Iran is a country under heavy sanctions. Iran is a country which under mass shock therapy by Pezeshkian government, who shock therapy which brought people on the street in the first place back in January. Yeah? So in a sense, people are while people became the nationalist sentiment and anti-imperialist sentiment got genuinely strengthened and revived during that 40 days war, but the economic pressure is another one which is like suppressing that sentiment. So all of these things are working together. So it's about timing. If you leave it another 6 months, I think people may become less anti-imperialist, and the focus goes on do whatever you can, just bring down the inflation. But if you do it in the next month, you have more chance. At the moment, every day is passing, we are being left only with the base, which is important. The base is about 14, 15 million population of a strong pro-revolutionary, pro-state people. But the war open to a much bigger spectrum of people. For like 30 million people were supporting Iran, and they're even supporting like Iran to become nuclear. So it's about timing. And my worry is this negotiation becomes too long, becomes another forever negotiation, the way that JCPOA was. And during that time, United States cleverly manages to change Iran's elite's behavior, Iran's state's behavior, and manages to in a sense, drive Iran's population to left and right.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. And I've discussed it as well, that I am afraid one of the most powerful ways of Western empire is to co-opt people through opening up their markets. I was thinking, you cannot bomb Iran into submission, but you can try and do it through the opening up of society, neoliberalization, and slowly turn it into a vassal state. That makes me extremely scared. And I'm saying that as somebody who lives in China, and even here you have the right-wing capitalists who really want to neoliberalize society. They want to work with the United States. It's really a force to reckon with, People often do not take that seriously. They think everything's black and white. You have an anti-imperialist camp and you have a imperialism. But whether it's Russia, whether it's Iran, whether it's China, you have these people, and they are genuinely a force to reckon with. So I totally agree with you how dangerous that is. And I had what I'm hearing some. I'm going to mute you, Dimitri. So, okay. So, and I have one more question about that, Ali, and that is, if it was up to you, if it was up to you right now, what would you advise Iran to do at this moment, in this situation, what's happening right now? What do you say would be a thing that could shift the momentum again?
I would first, Iran needs to make resilience inside the country. Without that, all these talks are kind of useless. And that's what Khamenei was talking about when he talked about resilient economy from 2010 onward, which was never delivered. So, in a sense, first, Iranians should prepare themselves for a very turbulent next 2 years. Whether in that next 2 years, United States join in the war or doesn't join in the war, Israel nonetheless will be on Iran's case. It doesn't necessarily mean war. It can be a combination of assassination campaign, sabotage, kind of guerrilla forces coming from Iran's kind of west province of Kurdistan or southeast province of Balochistan, cyber warfare, as we've seen in the last 2 days by hacking Iran's banking system, financial sabotages, and trying to bring people on the street, hybrid warfare, and other things. So they should be prepared for a state of emergency. They should run the country in a way of in the state of emergency. Look at that. After Charlie Hebdo, France announced a state of emergency, and I think it stayed for about 5 years. And Iran, as a country which has been attacked twice directly in a military way, and once in a style of hybrid warfare in January, hasn't announced a state of emergency. This doesn't make sense for me. This rush in Iran to go back to a state of normalization, I think that's number one mistake. So if in a state of emergency, a state of war, they run war economy, so they will have much more maneuverability in what they want to do in the region with the United States, etc. Number two, I would tell them that United States can be under pressure. This war did not blow heavily on the United States. I don't buy what like Mearsheimer says, Tirza Parsi, and everyone else says that this war really forced the United States to surrender. I think that's a bit like wishful thinking. This war could have brought United States to surrender. This war showed United States how strong Iran can be, and closure of a Strait of Hormuz, how lethal it can be. Yes, Trump sensed it and realized that Netanyahu has pushed him into this war, and that was a mistake. However, Trump is a man of tactics, not Trump as a person. We are not talking about psychology. United States as a declining empire in the interim period between transition of between two world order is more into tactics than a strategy. And so in 2 months' time, 3 months' time, when energy reserves have been refueled, when oil prices have gone down even further, more than lower than what it was before the war, when they have found out other routes and they prepare themselves, they can come and challenge Iran again. They can try to throw away some of the concessions and start putting pressure on Iran's economy. And as you said correctly, because they learned by working in Iran, by economic cooperation, they can put more pressure on Iran. They can sabotage Iran's economy. My worry is Trump learned the lesson and realized why Obama went for JCPOA. My worry is that Trump and Trump administration suddenly realized that JCPOA was a stronger weapon against Iran than Trump's stupid military campaign was in that 40 days. And they realized that by creating a wedge inside Iran's factional politics and Iran's economic politics and different economic factions, they can bring Iran closer and closer and force it to basically give up some of its military rights and some of its rights to nuclear, etc., etc. So, in a sense, this entanglement between Iran and United States that some people like Tirza Parsi think will bolster the peace deal, for me, is a very dangerous move and can really endanger Iran and actually bring the hesitation within Iranian ruling class and make them to do the job of Washington and Tel Aviv themselves. So we are in a hard situation. So my advice to Iran would be take care of your own domestic situation, prepare yourself, and also have your open eyes for the war to start tomorrow, for Israel to attack directly or indirectly. And number three is, it still is not too late. It's still, United States needs you more than you need them. So use your leverages. These leverages are becoming useless in 3 months' time or 6 months' time. Do not give up on Lebanon. In 6 months' time, you have much less leverage to push Israelis out of Lebanon. So use it now. Everything is about momentum, and losing momentum would be a big mistake.
Right. I think Dimitri wants to say something. Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry, comrades. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
I'm most sorry. I am 7 minutes late for another interview. I wish I could continue this great conversation, but I appreciate the opportunity to participate. And Ali, I hope that you'll come onto our program, Reason to Resist. We'd love to have you in the near future.
With pleasure and with my honor.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Ali. Dimitri had a problem. He could not hear us. So I actually said on WhatsApp to him that I will put on my thumb so he can say goodbye. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I'm also very afraid of the loss of momentum. And I think it's a deliberate tactic of the United States and Israel to slowly dissipate the fire out of the whole situation. And it seems to be very honest, it seems to be working, and it's very unfortunately that we often cannot talk about these things. But I still see the videos, by the way, popping up online of Trita Parsi and about how everything is winning for Iran and everything is a victory. And yeah, go ahead.
But that's important. I mean, I do have respect for Tirta Parsi. What he's done over Palestine is very noteworthy, and it's a very noble work. And he's been under pressure in the United States, as you know. They were even like talking about his deportation. But nonetheless, his life career is been about making this detente between Iran and United States. And he is part of Queen's Institute. So he has a more of an American point of view than Iranian point of view. Maybe he thinks Iran being co-opted in the global market is a good thing, whereas I believe in nation states sovereignty. I fight and the fight of global South against imperialism, against colonialism. These are two different worldviews. So they constantly are saying that Iran has won, and unfortunately, this image of Iran's victory is being mirrored and doubled by Iranians' national state TV inside the country, and the way they're using this messaging is to tell the people that we have already won the war is finished, go home, you've done your job, so leave the rest of it with us, and we are negotiating from the point of view of the point of strength and power, and everything is perfect. And I think that's like a lullaby. That's dangerous. Iran is a country, the nation can only win if they stay vigilant and in the state of resistance, in the state of defense. The moment they start putting their eyes together, they will be doomed for another blitzkrieg, the way that happened June 2025, will be another kind of assassination of the leader. Look at that. Iran's supreme leader has not appeared in the public yet. The country is not normal. So in a sense, Iran has not revived its deterrence yet, despite all the bravery, despite all the sacrifices, despite all the martyrs and all the prize and all the firepower that it has shown, all the innovations, all the innovation of a third world country which has fought hard for its independence. So no, the job of Iranians for establishing the independence has not finished yet. And this story is being told halfway. No, I think we are still in the middle of this war. This negotiation, from American point of view, can be used as another episode of this war, can be used as another weapon. We have this history of Americans and Westerners negotiating and using the negotiation to kill the leaders of tribes, leaders of native and groups and communities, including Said Ayatollah Khamenei, who was killed in the middle of negotiation, including General Salami and Hajizadeh and Bagheri, who were killed in the middle of the previous negotiation, including Qasem Soleimani, who was killed when he was summoned for a negotiation with Saudi team in Baghdad in 2020. So, in a sense, I think it would be very, very naive to think Iran has won or has not won. Iran wins when it becomes like China, economically independent, cannot be sanctioned by United States, and its affairs are truly defined internally by its own people. And we have still a long way to go with that. But of course, this 40 days war really changed things drastically inside Iran. Remember, on 27th of February, Iranians were willing to make a lot of concessions, which, in comparison with that, this MOU is a document of Iran's victory, and of course. But I'm saying that uh, this is not enough, and this memorandum means very little thing, especially from Trump's point of view, and so we have to look at that 40 days, and we have to remember how much power socially, economically, and militarily we had, and we have to continue on that path rather than giving up, disarming ourselves, and going back to a state of normalcy.
Yeah, I fully agree with that sentiment, Ali. I really, really agree with that. And I do hope that the forces that believe that in Iran also have or get the upper hand at least, because I'm so incredibly scared that these neoliberals are going to really sell out the country. And that would be the death knell of Iranian society. I mean, you don't want to become part of that capitalist system, or maybe even get a Saudi Arabiaification of Iran in the future. You know what I mean? I mean, this is of course a very extreme example, but they're so good at that sneaky vassalization through marketization of different societies. One final question, Ali, and then I'll let you go. This has been excellent. You have been removed from X. I heard. I don't know a lot about it. I'm not on X because I hate that place. It's so much racism and right wing crap that I wanted to get out of there. But can you tell us a bit what was going on and who do you suspect was behind that?
So I think it should be 12 or 13th of April, and that was when Ghalibaf went to Islamabad with Arakshi for meeting JD Vance, and I was one of the kind of more prominent voices criticizing that trip. I believed Iran should have cancelled that trip because of Lebanon, and I believed Ghalibaf should not have met up with Vance. Nonetheless, and because United States assassinated Iran's leader, and so it's not a very good messaging that 40 days after that, while nothing, not even an apology for that has been issued, or for example, for Minab, United States has not even accepted responsibility for what happened in Minab and killing 168 students, or what happened with uh, the battleship Dena, which was not armed, and 104 Navy members killed unarmed. So none of these things, and going and shaking hand with JD Vance is not a good sign for a country in the middle of war. Why? Because still you're asking Iranian young people to go and sit down behind missile launchers and being bombed by F-35s and being turned into powder. So if you're asking them, ideology matters sometimes, ethics matters sometimes, and sticking with principles matters sometimes. I'm a realist, but I believe even from realist point of view, showing that you have principles is important. It looks like weapon, and so I think that was a bad move. And then about 2 days, and my show, my Persian show on was being broadcasted both on X and YouTube, and was like possibly 5,000-6,000 people every night watching it live. And so it was, and my account was 400,000 people in Persian, about 30,000 in English, and then my account was suspended. No explanation, not a single warning beforehand. Alongside me, three other people Alizadeh Zakani, Tehran's mayor, who was also critical of the negotiation, and Dr. Mehdi Khanalizadeh, who is a famous presenter in TV, Iran's national TV, and later Mohsen Maghsoudi, a principalist politician. All of us were suspended for one thing, for criticizing the negotiation. And then I heard from a Qatari source later that the list was given by J.D. Vance's office to X.com. And of course, you know that better than me, that Elon Musk, who was really fond of attacking Iran and doing regime change like a TV, like a computer game back in January, throughout this war changed his mind and became closer to J.D. Vance and became supporter of the deal. So in a sense, X.com and its emperor, Elon Musk, also wanted the deal to work. So he wanted to like hush down every critical voice. So 4 of us were suspended. Sad thing is my accounts were premium, meaning that I paid $300 for each one of them. So $900 went like this. And more sad than that was I trusted this platform so much in the last 15 years that all my contacts, all my relationship with a lot of journalists were only in X. So I've lost my connection to many of these people. I don't know how to contact them. I don't have any telephone number, etc. And that's a good lesson for me and anyone not trusting any of these platforms who are so reliant on the whims of their oligarchic owners, on one person like Elon Musk. And so I think I'm kind of, in a sense, angry for being censored so openly, so blatantly, and no one would talk about that. If that happened by Iranian government or by Chinese government or North Korean government, it would be a lot of clamor of how these states are against freedom of speech. But not only freedom of speech, but freedom of consumers' right. Because as a premium subscribers, I was a consumer who was like deleted without a single correspondence from X. They never responded to me. They didn't tell me anything. So that's my story with X. And now I'm going to start my work on Substack, possibly.
Yeah, we are also on Substack. Up till now, it's a very good one. But like you said, and I've been writing about this actually for years already in my articles, we have a very big problem because we're always dependent on platforms that are part of the imperial core. And we have a serious problem that we do not have alternatives. I'm baffled why we just don't find a way to get alternatives. It's so hard to get off these platforms. I just talked to Dimitri before you came on also about how certain videos of his were flagged and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, we are literally reporting on the empire, on the platform that is supporting the empire. It's such a big problem. And I don't know, the amazing information dominance, intellectual colonization by the West when it comes to our media spaces, our communication, education, etc. is something we really, really need to find a way to get off. But that's probably a discussion for another time. But yeah, when you tell me about all those politicians who were educated in the West and then take all that neoliberalism home, yeah, we have a big uphill battle when it comes to these things, Ali. And hopefully we can be victorious someday in the future, because this is becoming extremely frustrating. Anyway,
but let's get kind of finish with them on a hopeful note,
positive
because
note.
nonetheless, not a positive note. Nonetheless, we are witnessing that 40 days, I believe, should have been 50, 60, 70, until the day that had revived Iran's deterrence and had changed the politics of West Asia. Of course, Trump would have bombed Iran's infrastructure. Of course, it would be very costly, etc. But nonetheless, even that 40 days shows resistance is possible. Look at that. Dimitri talked about delinking Iran from Lebanon, and everyone talked about Iran abandoning Lebanon 2 years ago when Said Hassan Nasrallah was killed. And of course, that didn't happen. And we see that even an injured Hezbollah, how powerful is that? Yeah. So I think what we are witnessing here, it is right for us to be cautious, worried, anxious about the future of resistance and the internal domestic battle between liberals, neoliberals who do not want to have resistance and they want to sell out resistance to empire. But nonetheless, the fact that we are having this discussion 47 years, 48 years after Iran's revolution and 42 years after the inception of Hezbollah, 2 years after assassination of Said Hassan Nasrallah, and 104 days, 110 days after assassination of Said Ali Khamenei means that this resistance have worked. This resistance, who no one would believe work, they have worked and they have achieved a lot. Of course, they haven't finished off the job, but who said empire will be defeated easily? So I think still in comparison with many other forces, Western intellectuals, those who are only demonstrating and in the West in terms of I don't want to like enter factional politics, but nonetheless, these native local resistance in their own countries actually they show the way forward. And so Iran's missiles, Iran's drone system, Iran's nuclear still is a big thorn in the throat of empire. And so I'm sure the same logic can be applied to the war on social media and creating strong native platforms for the future. So I think the future has a lot of hurdles, but is more bright than ever.
And on that positive note, we are going to end it here. I hope indeed that we are soon going to see all those indigenous platforms, and I will be the first one to jump on them because I love to get off these imperial platforms who can kick us off anytime they want. This was excellent again, Ali. This is already the third time. I hope many more. I'm going to keep following you, and hopefully we will talk about an update soon.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for inviting me, as always, and giving me this ample time. And one of the most patient hosts I know. You are so, and the great work that you've been doing. So, alongside your academic work, I think creating this space for slow, deep conversations is amazing. And so, I just maybe this platform doesn't work tomorrow, but as long as it does, you are making a very good use of it.
Thank you so much. That's a very valuable compliment. And let's talk again soon, Ali.
Static crackles, voices rise. Truth breaks through their velvet lies. A screen of fire, a shield of steel. BettBeat Media makes you feel. No borders, no change, no silence.